Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Andrew Musgrove here, joined by Chief Sports Writer Ryder. He's just come out of the press conference with Steve Bruce. Newcastle lost again, Lee, 2-1 to Leeds United. You were up there at St James's Park. A much improved second half to what was a dire first half. Just some of your thoughts about what you witnessed tonight.
Yeah, I mean, second half, much better. I said in my match report that they couldn't be much worse in recent weeks. So it was, it was easy on the eye because we haven't seen that for a while. But when I looked at the stats and realised that I had 22 attempts at goal, this game in isolation, yeah, they were a little bit unlucky. It's all right, criticising them when they're bad, but you have to give them a bit of credit when they do okay, and they've done okay in the second half. Now, I can't get too carried away because the final outcome is still 0 points, and they're still very much in and around the relegation area. So hopefully it's a small step in the right direction. But the next away game's at Everton, and not many people like the look of that one.
What was Steve Bruce like in the press conference? I mean, a lot of people would have seen your tweets and his commentary. Maybe did he come across a bit positive after what he'd witnessed in the second half?
Yeah, he took questions from the media, the written media, which a lot has been made about that going into the game. But he answered questions. He answered questions from myself and other organisations. So there was no big drama on that score. It was all business as usual. But I think basically the big line that he kept repeating was he hasn't been able to play his best 11. So read into that what you will. There's no doubt about it though. St Maximin and Fraser make Newcastle a better team. Wilson come alive again tonight. I thought obviously didn't score, but got an assist and was in and around things and looked much better.
We said after they beat Everton and then they beat Crystal Palace, which was arguably two decent performances this season, that we needed to see Newcastle build on it, and it didn't really happen. For all the positives out of tonight's second half performance, as you said, they're still lost. It's 2 points out of the last 27. Big game tomorrow down the bottom of the table between Brighton and Fulham. Newcastle need to start picking up points, and for all Steve Bruce will be positive about what he saw in the final 45, he needs to make sure that against Everton in the games coming up, that they do build on this performance, and we're not back here in a week, 2 weeks' time saying, well, we're staring relegation right in the face because Newcastle haven't built on the positives.
Yeah, I mean, my big concern with other results is, as I think I've said it a few times, is that Newcastle aren't going to stay up on 19 points. So it doesn't matter what other teams do. Eventually, you will get sucked in if you rely on other teams. So they have to do their side of the bargain. They've got a couple of home games coming up after Everton. For me, they need to take 4 or 5 points out the next 3 games to stave off that threat, that immediate threat of the drop. But I think really Steve Bruce, he will feel better today. He won't feel 100% better, but he'll feel a little bit better because his team actually put on a performance in the second half and didn't look like a team who weren't playing for the manager. So it's turning into a tough season for Newcastle. It's obviously coming out now from around the 4 walls of Newcastle that the remit is simply to stay up. Regardless of the shocking run they're on, it looks like they're going to be sticking with Steve Bruce, whether people like it or not. They're bringing Graham Jones in as coach. Ben Dawson's staying around the scene until the end of the season. So that seems to be the plan until May, and then we'll see where they are after that. But they need to improve. There's no doubt about it.
St Maximin came on in the second half and he played alongside Fraser, which is what Steve Bruce has said he wanted to do, and the created chances. St Maximin was arguably the difference. But you're relying on him, aren't you? Really, I mean, that's what Steve Bruce is pinning the hopes on, that those two can stay fit.
Yeah, I mean the danger with that is that St Maximin wasn't consistent before he went on the COVID list. He'd had a couple of bad games after that Burnley game and didn't look convincing. So I just think really you can't pin it all down to one player, but when he's in that type of form tonight, I think the crowd would have loved that tonight. I mean, maybe with the crowd there, that might have just been that extra little factor that would have got Newcastle the point there tonight and stopped the rot. Delightful play when he made that run and then laid it off to Jamal Lewis and he's hit the bar. Maybe just felt the wrong guy, unfortunately, because he's not renowned as a goal scorer. And he did a couple of other good things that we haven't seen, and really, you just hope that he can continue it.
I mean, there was a bit more fight in the second half. We saw for the goal, Isaac Hayden sliding in, really good, tough challenge, which eventually led to Miggy putting it away. And players just seemed to have a bit more passion in the second half to what we saw in the first half. Was that down to, what do you think that was down to? Steve Bruce at half time, the introduction of St. Maximin changing the game. What do you put that down to?
Well, you know what it can be like in football. What one little incident or one little moment can just suddenly change everyone's mindset. And when Newcastle got back into the game and scored through Almiron, and it was actually we're not that bad. We can score goals, so it just gave them that bit of confidence again. Sadly, the joy only lasted 4 minutes. It was an awful equaliser, really gifted Leeds the goal. They had loads of space on that side of the pitch, and that was the disappointing part. But apart from that, in the second half, it was all Newcastle and sharper finishing. You come across a different goalkeeper, and it's a different game altogether. But at the end of the day, they'll go into the next game and they'll have that confidence.
I kind of feel like when the game ended, it was saying it's positive. In many ways, it feels like we're talking a bit like a win, but the reality is Newcastle have lost. Yes, much improved performance, but the result goes the wrong way tomorrow and Fulham win, they're going to be dragged right into it. And they really do need to get something from Everton, don't they? And just make sure that they can build on what is a decent platform that we've seen tonight in this second half.
Yeah, and to be honest, it doesn't matter if they're playing Everton away, Manchester United away, they're all going to be hard games now. And I think for Steve Bruce, he can't pick the games. And even if he could pick the games, they've had Sheffield United now who are bottom and they couldn't beat them. So it doesn't matter who they get. They've got to turn up with a performance like tonight in the second half. They've got to hope that the other team doesn't fancy it, because let's be honest, Leeds for the last 20 minutes were backs to the wall, and even Bielsa was complimentary about Newcastle in his press conference, said they were a very good team. So, I mean, it's easy to say when you've just won, you know what I mean? It's easy to say when you've just completed the double over a team, but just little bits of positivity, and hopefully they can piece them all together and get a result. But they're not gonna stay up unless they have a positive mindset. And while there's negativity outside the four walls, they've got to remain positive, and hopefully they can, complete the job of the job has now turned into just simply staying up. At one point, it was talking about getting the top 10. Don't think they're going to do that now. But if they can stay up in these awful times, it's at least something to sort of to look forward to the next season, that they would still be a Premier League team.
I mean, Scott Ainsley there on Facebook, it's blunt, but it's simple and effective. A good 45 minutes means nothing. And he is right, because if they fall to Everton, then it is literally just a good 45 minutes in the scheme of what has been a pretty poor season.
Yeah, well, I said that at the start. I said they got 0 points from it, so I agree with them. It's one of them where you get these comments on Twitter and Facebook, and at the end of the day, you're thinking exactly the same thing, because or you wrote in your match report. So it does mean nothing. I said that. It's one of them where for Steve Bruce, he, as I say, will feel better tonight, but it isn't the be all and end all. They've still got to get a win on the board, and then they'd see where they go from there. But I still think they need a couple of players in on loan, just to lift things a bit, give them something going forward. And really, there's a few players that need to leave the club, clear the wage bill, find new clubs elsewhere, and then they can go from there.
Can you see any arrivals coming in the next couple of weeks? We know that they could do with some, but is there a reality that they could actually get some?
Well, they've only got 5 or 6 days left to get business done. I think they've expressed interest in 1 or 2 Premier League players who are available for loan. Brandon Williams being one of them. Shoudbury from Leicester as well is one, but they have to get players out the door and get people off the wage bill. I did see one outrageous report saying Lazar was possibly going to AC Milan. I don't think that's going to happen, but it does show that his agent is trying to drum up interest and trying to get him a move to Italy, which he desperately needs. So whether it's AC Milan or not, we'll wait and see. But they just need to get people off the wage bill, people who aren't going to be registered in the squad, and then they've got to go from there.
Just a couple more questions, and before we let you get off, we mentioned there how the first half was vastly different to the second half. But why was the first half so poor, do you think? And there was a mass improvement in the second half. Is that solely down to the introduction of maybe Alan St-Maximin, or do you think there's something else going on there?
No, I just think that I said before the game that they were going to turn the corner in some way, and I think they have turned the corner in the way that they found a good performance. It was much better than Aston Villa. It was much better than Sheffield United, better than Arsenal. And realistically, they haven't won the game, but they've got something to at least build on it and go forward. And confidence is the name of the game, and they've got that to take to Everton. So I just think it was one of them where they had to get themselves together. They did, and I think there was a lot of fight out there. I really do. I think Fabian, he summed it up, didn't he, by picking up a couple of injuries but demanding to get back on the field. There's a bit of an incident being reviewed with Rodrigo, which neither manager wanted to comment on. Everyone needs to have a look back at those replays. I haven't had a chance to look back at them myself, but we'll see what comes of that. But I just thought there was more fight in Newcastle tonight, and they'll definitely need that in the next 2 games.
A lot of people pointing out, that Leeds had, conceded 32 goals in the last few away games. They hadn't won in the last 3, for this calendar year. And saying, well, Newcastle should have maybe done a little bit better. But I guess, in a way, you've got to dilute that with the fact that Newcastle are on such a horrible run of form themselves. It's not just as easy as facing another side who are also on a bad run of form and picking up a win, is it?
No, I mean, probably teams want to play Newcastle at the minute because they feel that there's 3 points up for grabs, and so it's proved again tonight. As I say, I was positive going into the game because I thought they had to turn the corner. They haven't quite been able to do it, but they almost got a point which would have stopped the rot. And it gets to the stage in the season when you threaten with relegation where you just feel like this is gone. And that was the case in 2009. They were gone with 8 games to go, even when Shearer come in. He came in too late. With Rafa, was very similar as well. Don't be fooled into thinking that it was a lucky escape, because they lost at Norwich, if you remember, lost at Southampton when they were dead on their knees. Newcastle haven't reached that stage yet. They've got 18 games to go. But you look at that fixture list, some horrible games in there, so you can probably write off about 5 or 6 of them. So, we're not too far away from 2009 and 2016. They've got to get a win and turn the corner and keep hoping, those results below them keep going their way. But they have to get points. I've said they're not going to stay up on 19 points. They probably will stay up on about 34 points. So they've got quite a lot to do.
William agreeing there, saying it felt like watching a different team that second half. They were fighting for each other, he says. Penultimate question then, Lee. You mentioned Fabian Schär there, put in one of his best performances of late. A lot of questions saying, could he have played himself into a central midfield role going forward?
Well, I think Newcastle tried that last season, and they're so short on defenders that I would be surprised if he plays there in the next game or two. He's a centre half at the end of the day, and he's one that you like to have up your sleeve in terms of attacking, because every now and again he brings the ball out of defence. Nearly scored tonight with an audacious volley, and I just think that just keep him where he is. Lascelles had a bit more confidence about him tonight. Also nearly scored. You just hope that the lads who are very close to fitness can get back, and Steve Bruce can play this strong team that he keeps talking about.
Lascelles had quite a few chances, one deflected and hit the bar. Just finally then, anything on Graham Jones? Do we expect him to maybe be in the dugout come the game against Everton?
It looks that way. I think he was in the stands tonight or in the director's box watching. Someone mentioned to me that he was here, so he's arrived. I don't know when. Maybe Newcastle might announce that tomorrow. I don't know how much of a big thing they're going to make of it. I don't think you can really make too much of a big thing about a coach coming in. I think maybe it'd be interesting to see if he does actually do any club media, internal media, because at the end of the day, none of the other coaches have spoken this season. So it would be strange if he did. Maybe they just want one voice, and that'll be Steve Bruce. But to be fair, Steve Bruce did seem in a lot better fettle after the game than he has been. Not too much, by the way, because he's been pretty down in the dumps, as have the fans. But at the end of the day, it seems slightly in better fettle, and it does seem that this is the plan now going forward. So they're going to have to get on with it and get those points.
Lee, thanks for joining us. To you guys watching, please remember to subscribe on the YouTube channel and the podcast if you're listening later on that platform. Head over to chroniclelive.co.uk where you can catch Lee's match report, player ratings, and all the reaction from Steve Bruce and the players as well. Thank you very much for tuning in.